Or do you just want me to play every single?
We might end up reordering them, but there's gaps in them, so we can do that. I think that's
Okay. If we could just play a scale or something like that, like a B major scale.
we need the actual acting bit of it. You guys even? What is that noise? Hey! Hey! What are you even doing? Trying to make a show here.
Hey, Sam.
Oh, hey Jacob, how you doing?
Good. You find that script yet?
Yeah, I got the script. It says right here that we do a cold open,
Yep.
then the rolling text,
Yep.
then the lightsaber duel.
We don't have that one yet.
Great.
Why won't you ever let me start the show?
I am the show.
Sam, don't give in to the dark side. Use the Force for good.
What?
You heard me. Use the Force for good.
Dad?
No, I'm not your dad. I'm your conscience. Look, you already beat the guy. Just let him up.
I mean, it's a good point. Come on, we've got stuff to do. You good?
Yeah, it was a little brutal.
I mean, I got a little bit carried away, but we still have a show to put on, so...
Little.
You handle 2-minute history, and I'll get the set going.
Star Wars has traveled the globe, spreading its influences, stories, creating memories for people of all ages. This has to be one of the biggest science fiction topics of all time alongside Star Trek. The creator of Star Wars, George Lucas, has worked on over 51 films since the 1960s, and with the success of American Graffiti in 1973, Lucas gained enough of a name for himself to start the Star Wars saga. Of the films that Lucas has worked on, the Star Wars saga has to be the most successful of them. The saga to date has grossed over $15 billion, with the franchise's merchandise valued at an estimated $65 billion. Lucas was born in the 1940s, growing up in a post-World War II environment, giving him many inspirations for his films. From a young age, Lucas admired sci-fi and space adventures such as Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers, and drew from them for his inspiration. But not only did Star Wars take inspiration from the dark sci-fi of the time, but Lucas also drew from The Triumph of the Will, the most successful Nazi propaganda film, as inspiration for certain dynamics and scenes in the saga. There are undeniable parallels between the Empire and Nazi Germany. For many of the characters in the saga, Lucas drew from films like The Wizard of Oz, Metropolis, and The Hidden Fortress to create characters like C-3PO, as well as taking inspiration from Robin Hood for the character of Han Solo. Lucas drew from Akira Kurosawa's films for the fight scenes and styles to use in his films and lightsaber battles. Lucas saw the need for science fiction that wasn't as dark as the saga's predecessors. He saw the opportunity to create a space opera meant for a younger audience. The first Star Wars movie was produced in the saga was the fourth one, A New Hope. A New Hope began its creation in the summer of 1976, 5 years after Lucas and his buddy Gary Kurtz began incubation of the idea for the saga. Since the release of A New Hope in 1977, 8 of the Skywalker saga films have been produced, with the last one, The Rise of Skywalker, soon to be released. There have been 2 anthology films produced, Rogue One and Solo, along with 4 TV shows, the newest of which is The Mandalorian, released on Disney+. With the rising success of Star Wars films, Lucas Production, and Industrial Lights and Magic, in 2012, Lucas sold the franchise with Lucasfilms to Disney for $4 billion, with the And with the opening of Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland this year, we see that the Star Wars franchise only grows with the anticipation of future content. Now, I know that was a lot and a bit more than 2 minutes, but there was just so much I had to say. With that, back to Sam.
Fantastic. Now that all of that has been dealt with, we got through the schedule, okay? We've got everything. We just now hit the 2-minute history. We are now on track with the episode.
Yep,
but
we're
we need to
rolling
keep
well.
on track. And unfortunately, Star Wars is a massive amount of things to talk about, so we're going to be mentioning everything that happened and why it's important from each episode of the saga to just summarize it up for everyone to just get a basis of what Star Wars even is. So, to start things off, we have The Phantom Menace. Now, that movie is the first installation, but not the first one created. Jar Jar Binks is in this movie, which is kind of sad because Jar Jar Binks isn't that good of a character, but he is still there for the kids, which is awesome because everything has to have something for the kids. So,
He's comedic relief.
Yeah, but this is also the movie where we get to see Darth Maul. And Darth Maul is probably one of the coolest villains out there just because of his fighting style and his use of a double-bladed lightsaber, which is the first time we got to see anything other than just a normal one-bladed lightsaber. You know, it was very interesting and it's very cool. And this scene also adds into Duel of Fates, which is probably one of the coolest songs in Star Wars. John Williams does a fantastic job with every single installation of Star Wars, and the music composed with it is just fantastic.
He is an A+ composer. One of the best of our time.
This movie introduces us to Anakin Skywalker, who is the kind of focus throughout the entire saga. He is Darth Vader. He is one of the most powerful Jedi due to his high midichlorian count and connection with the Force, which kind of gets more explored in with the Attack of the Clones. Now, the Attack of the Clones is the movie where everything is set up for the next stage. We see the political aspects kind of being more expanded upon, and we see the Republic kind of going at an angle where they are not able to go against the Separatist forces, and they are going to be overrun unless they take action soon, which leads to the clones being cloned from Jango Fett, an infamous bounty hunter who is really cool. He's really cool, and we get to see a lot of stuff happening with that.
This is also when we see the Jedi begin their demise as they can't really
rough.
they can't keep diplomatic peace anymore.
Yes.
They're losing their control, and this is the beginning of the end for them.
Which kind of leads to the next movie, which is The Revenge of the Sith. Now, up until this point, there have been a rule of two between the Sith, and it has been Emperor Palpatine and Count Dooku are the two Sith Lords. Now, that is kind of put on a chance right off the beginning because Anakin Skywalker kills Count Dooku. And you see his fall to the dark side progress throughout this movie, and it's really important because he is the key factor into really finishing off the Jedi. Emperor Palpatine puts into order Order 66, that's conveniently phrased right there, where it eliminates all of the Jedi and it is reduced into a very small cluster of people, where we see Obi-Wan and Yoda put in terrible positions where they have to be the only force against the dark side.
Right, and at the end of this movie is really when we see Darth Vader come to life as Anakin makes his final descent into darkness.
And this also has one of the coolest action sequences and the best lightsaber duel, Battle of Heroes, take place between Obi-Wan and Anakin. It is probably the coolest one. If you haven't seen that, just look that up because you need to watch it. It is probably the coolest lightsaber duel out there.
Right, and this leads us into New Hope, which was the first movie produced, but the fourth movie in the story.
And A New Hope really sets up everything. Where Lucas, this was the first one that Lucas had envisioned, and it shows the rebellion versus the Empire, and it puts kind of the stakes right at that level where we see this farm boy from Tatooine, Luke Skywalker, the son of Anakin Skywalker, go on an adventure with Obi-Wan Kenobi to rescue Princess Leia, who just so happens to be his sister, but he doesn't know that quite yet. And you see them kind of go against this indomitable force of this galactic space station, the Death Star, which is a planet capable of blowing up planets, and it really just kind of puts things into a new level, which leads into the next movie, which is Empire Strikes Back. Now, this movie is the one where it's probably my favorite movie of Star Wars. We get to see planets like Hoth, which are a super cool ice planet, where we have like creatures like Wampas and Tauntauns, and we see the rebels kind of trying to hide out.
Right, this is also one of my favorites because you really get to see Luke go through this change as he, becomes a Jedi. He's learning the ways of the Force, and he's learning how to deal with that, and also how to get through his own struggles, right? There's actual struggle that he faces and learns to overcome that by using the light side of the Force. And I think that's really a powerful gesture in the movie and sets up many of the key morals that you can learn from the saga.
And Empire Strikes Back sets up a beautiful planet. The planets in this movie are very fun to interact with, whether that be Hoth, Dagobah, or Bespin. Bespin is my personal favorite planet in all of Star Wars because I love it, and I love Lando Calrissian, who is an amazing character. He's kind of the in-betweener of the movie, and we get to see he betrays his friends, but he does it because he's trying to protect his people. And it's very interesting to watch this movie, as the ending of it is not a victory for the heroes. They lose. They completely lose. Han Solo is frozen in carbonite and taken away by Boba Fett to be sold off to Jabba the Hutt.
Right, there's not a huge redemption at the end of this.
No.
But that's what makes it so good, is it doesn't need redemption for it to hold its own and to have that grit that the movie needed to move on into the next.
And it really sets the stakes for the next movie, Return of the Jedi. And Return of the Jedi is the conclusion of the original trilogy, which is a fantastic way to do it. That movie has such a well set up storyline where we see the rebels going against their final battle against the Empire, and they're setting up this plan to take out the second Death Star, which they know is going to be a huge issue unless they deal with it right now. And so they go to planets like Endor, which is a little forested planet, which is really fun. I love this planet. And they meet creatures like the Ewoks, which is another thing for the kids, but it's super interesting.
Right, and this is when we see, the Jedi start to gain a little bit of their Force back. We start seeing this dynamic shift between the dark and the light side, and how that kind of balances out. As we move into the next 3 movies, though, I think we're going to see a lot of different things happen.
Now, we would love to talk about the sequels, but unfortunately, they have not been concluded as of just yet, so we don't want to give anything away if you haven't been keeping up. So, with that, though, we're going to have to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to be talking some special effects.
Audio, man, it's in the air. It's the fluctuations that vibrate our ear holes and make the cochlea sensitive, you can't ignore it, and you try to start measuring it, and it just pulls you in. Well, I used to try to play music on my own, make the sounds from my own hands and instruments. Then I started recording. Upon hearing myself in my recordings, I decided I should just record. When you're a young adult who is serious about pursuing media as a career or even a side hustle, a lot of people won't take you seriously. OMN is cool because not only will they take you seriously, they'll push you and they'll give you all the tools to really try to do something special with it and let you be creative about it. And so that's what's been special about OMN to me. I'm Sam Lay, and I'm a student engineer at Orange Media Network.
Student Multimedia Studios is your one-stop shop for all of your printing and production needs. If you need a poster for a class or a presentation, we've got you covered with our large format printers. In addition, we check out all the equipment you could need for your projects and offer production consulting in our studio spaces. Making a video or taking photos for a class? We have studios for photos, videos, and audio. Student Multimedia Services is located on the main floor of the Valley Library, and you can find our hours posted at oregonstate.edu/SMS.
Welcome back. Now, in this segment, we're going to be talking about the special effects that Star Wars had to create and utilize in their movies. Jacob, take it away.
Absolutely. So Star Wars has always been at the leading front for visual effects, mainly due to in 1977, Lucas creating Industrial Lights and Magic to fulfill his need for a new hope, right? Lucas always wanted to push the boundaries, and he always wanted to push them further. but he wanted his space battles to look good. So they developed a new technology with a blue screen. So instead of making the little figurines move in the space, they used a computer-controlled camera to move the camera around the object, giving it a really cool effect that made it actually look like the object was moving in the space rather than in a space battle. It looks different. And then they compiled all these effects on top of each other to create some of the really intricate space battles that we see. Another effect that Industrial Lights and Magic created was there's a certain camera that the VistaFilm camera, they used a sideways 35mm film for rather than horizontal because it gave them a better detailed picture for some of the miniatures. So they were able to get more detail into the film. Now, Lucas was always a man of vision, and he kept wanting to push CG. Now, there was a lot of pushback from animators and from his partners that didn't want to use CG, and his first film he was able to actually use CG in was in 2002 with Attack of the Clones, which explains why some of the graphics aren't that great.
Full CG.
Full
Yeah.
CG. You know, he was able to use computer graphics and programs for a lot of the other pieces that were just individual, like fighters, but for the entire movie, Attack of the Clones, it was all CGI. And while
Kind of
that was
explains a bit.
Yeah, it was revolutionary. It pushed the boundaries. It really established Industrial Lights and Magic as cutting edge throughout all of their innovations in film. It also needed work.
And one piece of the effects that I have to really just like give them kudos for is the lightsaber effects. Because I have done some lightsaber effects in my time, and man, they are so tedious. It's keyframing and just moving it with the blade every single frame. And it is something that is extremely difficult to do, extremely difficult to pull off, but I'm very happy they were able to do all these things with the cameras and the spaceships and all that kind of stuff, because it introduces us into the world of Star Wars, and it really helps us visualize that.
Right, and another thing to keep in mind why Lucas kept pushing digital cameras and CGI was he hated working with film. He absolutely hated working with film. Because, you know, every piece of that film, you have to take your scene, your one shot, and do the effect on each one rather than on a computer. You could just keyframe to the next one. Yeah. Right, so he wanted it to move and be faster.
Now, this series, the Star Wars saga, is so expansive and so big, and due to this kind of technology, it kind of leads it into its themes of the movies, which are kind of apparent right off the bat, because we see the rebellion versus the Empire. And with that, you kind of see the light versus the dark represented in each side. And it's very much a good versus evil, and it's very clear to understand and comprehend, especially as a kid growing up watching these movies. I fell in love with it in the story because it was very easy to grasp. And Star Wars kind of sets up that, and you see like characters like the Jedi versus the Sith that are all on each side, and you just see this clear division down the row.
Right, and in every single one of the Star Wars movies, you see this battle of the light versus the dark. And it's a very powerful movement because it's unlike a lot of other stories where it's just one character that's struggling with the light versus the dark in themselves. It's an entire galaxy struggling with the force of the dark and the force of the light in the universe, and it explains, you know, very human principle. Where we believe in, you know, bad things and bad people, and we believe in good things and good people, and we always want the light to shine through and win, but it doesn't always do that. And I think Star Wars illustrates that perfectly, that sometimes the light doesn't always win, but as long as you keep prevailing, you can shine through the darkness.
Heck, Revenge of the Sith and Empire Strikes Back, probably two of the most solid movies of each trilogy, have some very apparent, like the dark side, they win. They really win in those movies, and you get to see characters like my personal favorite character in all Star Wars, Obi-Wan Kenobi, really struggle with a lot of that stuff, and it's super like interesting to see all these types of characters that are associated with each side and the battles that come from them, and you get to see people turning, changing sides. Pretty much the most fluid character throughout it, we see Anakin Skywalker as the light figure who turns to the dark figure, who turns back to the light figure at the end of Return of the Jedi. And his character arc is very interesting to see because he goes from someone that is so hopeful to someone that is complete evil to someone that is back to redeeming himself as much as he can, but it's still kind of hard to redeem yourself when you've blown up a planet.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, you know, off that, we have it's very human. but it's also very abstract because we have this whole galaxy. It's a whole different universe, and I think that's why the story of the light versus the dark is so powerful here, because it's human. We want to know good versus evil, but we don't always want to deal with it in real terms. We don't want to always use historical moments to deal with that, and Star Wars gives us a base for dealing with those moments of light and dark.
It really sets up the fringe of the galaxy. The fact that Star Wars is so big and there's like this outer rim that isn't under the control of the Empire or the Rebellion, there are the gray areas in Star Wars. And we get to see smugglers going around just making their way in life, trying to get some extra credits. And we see bounty hunters going around doing things that were not exactly moral, but still they're just doing it because they have to. And it's very interesting to see the different types of jobs and the different types of people that live in the Star Wars universe that aren't clear-cut light versus dark.
Well, this is where we see some of the coolest characters show up. Han Solo, by far one of the coolest characters throughout all of Star Wars, really is impactful, and the way that he deals with individual events affects the outcomes of the movies. But he's in ways, he's having his own hero's journey, but he's also the sage, the wise man for a lot of the characters that are moving through this. And then we have Chewie, who's just lovable and awesome and just all around a great character. But they don't fall in any place between the light and the dark. They kind of hold their own. They have their own story as they go through this.
Now, while some people in the gray might have some allegiances to that be the light side, with Han Solo being a part of the rebellion, there's also people like Boba Fett right here who are a part of the Empire, technically, due to the fact that they're a bounty hunter who is willing to do some less moral things. But it still doesn't mean that they're a part of the dark side. They are still a gray character.
True, because he's going to do what he wants to do when he wants to do it.
Yeah, and we get to see a lot of stuff like that. And I'm personally a big fan of bounty hunters because I've always found them fascinating of what their profession is. And with a show like The Mandalorian kind of exploring more into that, we see that. But one of my favorite characters in the kind of gray area is Lando Calrissian. Because Lando Calrissian is this kind of charismatic man who has a way of talking that's just really nice to listen to, and he is someone that's like kind of a cheater, but still you gotta love him. And Lando has this fun game that he plays, and we get to see this kind of expanded upon in movies like Solo, where we have the game of sabacc. And in this game, we see Han and Lando kind of play each other for the Falcon, and we see Lando kind of cheat, but then Han kind of rebuttal that at the end of the movie with his own little bit of trickery up his sleeve. And it's very fun because in this game itself is very fun to play. So we couldn't resist playing it. So with that, let's play some sabacc. Hello everyone, I'm Sam. That's Revdak. That's Zeladar. That's Tardo the Destroyer. That's Jacob. And that's Tico Rundut, and we're going to be playing sabacc. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got what it takes, Zeladar?
I want to see
Get those cards out. Get those cards out.
I want to see where this goes.
Oh, you think you got something too?
I think I got something.
You think you got something
I think
too?
I got something. I want to know where this
Tico's
goes.
in.
Tico's in, all in.
I'm all in.
We're all in. Where are you at?
Let's see. 0, 3. 0, 3. Wait, what is...
God!
What? I only had one in there. How do you... Well, Tico Run Duke might have run us dry, but that doesn't mean I don't love the game of Sabacc. It's still a ton of fun to play, and I absolutely love it. It's just another way to dive further into the Star Wars universe.
I agree. I definitely lost some credits on that game. So before we get too far into this, I do want to point out that their merchandise is amazing. They are the 5th most successful merchandiser of a film. Actually, they're the most successful film merchandiser, but in the world, the 5th most. Under Pokemon, Hello Kitty, Winnie the Pooh, and Mickey Mouse and Friends, they're number 5. Valued at $65 billion, that's pretty incredible. Like, they have some pretty amazing stuff out there. They have books for all the movies, they have Shakespeare versions, they have all the stuff on the table, they have figures from the 80s. Like, they've been doing this for a while. They've got this game figured out.
Look at all this stuff I have. These are some of the original ones from like the 70s. Like, these are some very like nice figures. We got some Armada stuff. We've got a big Falcon right here. We got the like VHS tapes here. We've got a bunch of things. Look at this kind of merchandise.
Look at how cute that is.
Look at this Stormtrooper armor. Look at this.
It's so cute.
We got the aliens. There's so much fun things in Star Wars that you just want to see more of. And
right. I want all of it.
It's really impacted my life, especially growing up as a kid with Star Wars. It's something that means a lot to me. And me and my brother would have like lightsaber duels in our house, and we would just do things, and we'd play outside, imagining ourselves in the world of Star Wars, wanting to be in that environment. And it's something that just meant a lot to me. And it's truly impacted the world. It's not just something that I'm in love with, because if it's number 5, it's number 5.
It's huge for everyone, right? This is something it's an international endearment of Star Wars. And I think it's really important because it's so impactful. It has so much to tell, and it's such good content. Even the worst of the Star Wars movies are worth watching. Even the worst of them are good, and they still have a good story to tell, and I love them personally. You know, they're awesome. And you know, when we went to Galaxy's Edge together, I would happily move in tomorrow.
Yeah.
That was so much fun to just be immersed in that world. Even though it was so foreign and alien, it's so familiar because it's based in human conflict and that eternal struggle between the light and the dark. And it's beautiful to see the way that this space opera has completely integrated itself into people's childhood.
There's something about Star Wars that's just so fun
Yeah.
to talk about, and I've come to love everything about it. Whether that be like, hey, I have to admit, I do like me some stormtroopers. Like, sure, they're the bad guys, but come on, look at that armor. It's just so cool. Like, you gotta give it to them. They're cool. Like the Star Destroyers, those things are cool. Like, there's certain aspects of it. Like, you don't have to take a side. You can like whatever you want about Star Wars, and that's one of the most appealing parts of Star Wars, is that there's so much to choose from of what you want to like.
Right, and like, I don't necessarily say I'm part of the First Order of the Empire or the Dark Side or anything, but also dressing up as Kylo Ren is a lot of fun. You know, it's a good time, it's a great costume, and just immersing yourself in that either side of the battle is a lot of fun because there's always someone to talk to, there's always someone to play it out with you, and it's just immersive as a story. It's incredible.
It's going to be great to see what the impact of Star Wars will have in the future, especially because Star Wars isn't just going to stop. It's too big to stop because Star Wars is fantastic. And with these sequel movies coming to an end, it'll be interesting to see where they take it from that, especially with shows like The Mandalorian, and they're coming out with more content and games like Jedi Fallen Order, which is awesome. And there's so much to talk about in the world of Star Wars. But unfortunately, Star Wars is too big to keep talking about, so that is all the time for we have in tonight's episode. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you liked this episode. So be sure to check out more content by KBVR TV on our YouTube page, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, where we post tons of extra content. So thank you all for watching, and goodbye.